Hello to everyone, colleagues wherever you are, your kids, learners. I hope you are having a good time during these difficult times. I am Mohapi from Tabo Mufitsanyana, and I'm going to present to you a book review. I want to believe that now we all know what a book review is, mainly so because we do book review from previous grades. I'm talking about the intermediate phase, and now it's grade 7, we still do book review. And on top of that, this type of genre, I know we deal a lot with it during our district and provincial competitions. So what is good about book review is that now as we do it, we need not only do it for the sake of competitions, colleagues. It's a content that is prescribed in our ATPs, and we've got to make sure that now learners understand it. Now we are going to do book review under writing, where we will get into details of what book review entails, how to do it, how to write it, and what are important points that you need to take into account as you do a book review. Now I'm going to take you through the screen, and this is a book review background. Why I say book review, it's about the book you have read and understood. Remember that you cannot write about a book that you did not read. You have to read the book first, understand it, then you'll be able to do what they call a book review about that book. It is about the book you have recently read or just read, and very importantly, about the book that you enjoyed. You must have enjoyed the book as you were reading it. The book review reflects an individual response to the work of art. In other words, when we talk about an individual response, we mean we can read the same book, but the manner in which we are going to respond to it is going to be different. Just like, normally people used to say, you can watch the same game, but the feedback that you are going to give about how the game went about or how the game was is going to be different. Because book review is one of the subjective genres that we engage our learners in. It projects a judgment to the work presented. In other words, after reading a book, how do you feel about the book? What is your take with regard to the book that you have read? In other words, it's your own individual judgment about the book. It's not judgment in the sense that now you want to critique the book, but judgment in terms of how good the book was, how good the book is, or what you got so much, what you found interesting about the book, how you recommend the book to your friends and all that type of stuff. This is why now you give your own judgment based on the book that you have read. You do not have to imagine what the book is about. This is also an important point, that when you do a book review, you are not going to imagine about what the book is about. You need to give true facts as they appear in the book. You need to give the book review in the context of the book that you read. You are not going to fabricate or come up with something that is not related to the book. You don't come up with your own story. You do a book review based on the book that you have read and the book that you have enjoyed. I think that one is also very important. Now listen to the next bullet. Do not create your own book, but your own book review. Teachers and learners, as teachers take learners through a book review, it is important for them to emphasize that learners are not going to write their own book, but they are going to write a book review. This is about the work you have read, not the work that you are going to create. So the book review that you write, it has to be in line, 100% in line with the book that you'll have read. No fabrication about any points where you try to spice it in one way or the other. It has to be about what you have read. Two viewers may respond differently to the same text. In other words, we may read the same book, but when a person reads our book review, he will see that now, or he will realize that our response to the book review is somehow different, individualistic. But our responses have to talk about the book we have read. Two people will view the book differently, it's true, but it has to be, if we read the same book, our review must be about the same book. In other words, when a person reads my review and someone else's review about one book that we have read, that person must easily pick up that now we are talking about the same book, without even looking at the title of the book, looking at the contents of the book review. That person will be able to say, these people read the same book because we are fair in our judgment. By judgment, I mean we are fair in our response with regard to the book that we will have read. We are not going to fabricate. Give relevant facts as per frame provided. Now, you'll see I'm going to show you a frame for a book review, and then you give relevant facts. When we talk about relevant facts, we are actually referring to the facts as they appear in the book, the facts as they are in the book, or I may say, we give a plot as it unfolded in the book that we have read. And it's very important for us to do that. So book review is one of the quite interesting genre that one can engage in, because the book that you are going to write about, you chose it yourself. No one chooses you to read a particular book for a book review, but you choose a book yourself, a book that is of interest to you, that is, that will keep you focused on what you are reading, because the choice is yours. Hence, with regard to a book review, we let learners write about any book that they will have read. And very important, remember, in the second bullet, I spoke about recently read or just read. If you do a book review about a book that you read some years back, will you still be able to remember the details as they appeared in the book? No. So hence it's important that now we focus on something that we recently read. It is still fresh in our mind. Because remember, a book review does not allow for a platform. It's not a platform where now one will be able to fabricate points. Nope. Because the author of the book, if it happens that now the author of the book sees the book, the review that will have written about his or her book, he must like what you'll have said about the book in terms of not presenting facts in an incorrect manner. You need to present facts as they appear. That is also very important. Now, the second aspect that we are going to talk about is the 4 stages of a book review. In a book review, you need to introduce the book. When you introduce the book, you give us the title of the book. You tell us what type of a book the book you have read is. What type of a book it is. Is it a fiction? Is it a non-fiction? You need to give us those details. The author. Who is the author of the book that you are writing about? It's very important. So that's now you need to introduce the book to the readers correctly. Now outline the content of the book. When you outline the content of the book, you are going to engage more with the plot. What is the book about? And then who are the characters in the book? Who is the main character? Remember that now we've got what we call the main and the flat characters in the book. Now the other characters who are not playing an important role as the main character, we call those the flat characters. But now the main character is going to be our focus. Now we talk about the main character because every event in the book centers around the main character or the main characters. Now, for us to project well in terms of what the main character is like, normally we use what we call characterization, where now the author or the other characters will tell us more about the character. So in the writing of the book review, you are going to project to us how the main character is like. What is it that you like about the main character? Or what is it that you do not like about the main character? In other words, you do your own judgment based on the main character to come up with what we call characterization. What can you say about the book? Now the third bullet is about the highlight. You highlight the parts of the book. These are mainly, you bring to us, or you shift our attention to the theme of the book. What is the theme of the book? What is your favorite part of the book? Because now you are giving the highlights of the book. What brought about conflict? And how was the conflict resolved? That's a book review. Now lastly, you give a detailed evaluation of a book review. Now this is where we speak about own point of view. After you have read the book, you have your own point of view. If I may take you back just a little bit. Here, where I spoke about two reviewers may respond differently to the same text. We are going to respond differently because each of us has got his own point of view. Our judgment is not going to be the same, but we need not to drive the book review away from the contents or from the main message of the book or the story that we have read. It's very important. Now, this is what we call point of view. The own point of view. Like, for instance, your favorite part of the book might not be the same as my favorite part. We might look at different parts and then got interested in different parts of the book. Or even when we talk about the main character, we'll talk about the main character from two different angles. Because from my own perspective, and the other reader will also give that from his or her own perspective. Because we are two different people. Hence now we talk of own point of view. When you talk about give a detailed evaluation of the book, evaluation now, you evaluate the book in terms of its content, how good it was or how bad it was. Would you recommend this book to your friend? Would you recommend it to your peers? Would you really get to a point where you'll push your friend, go and read this book, and you'll find out about how good it is. I have learned a lot from this book. Remember that the essence of reading also is for information and learning. What do you learn from what you are reading? That is also very important. Now let's look at the main components of a book review. Now, the main components of book review, this is not quite different from the previous slide. Because here now, you have to give the, why was the book written? When was it written? Where was it written? When we talk about where and when, you know that now we are referring to the setting. The author who wrote the book. You give us that background, information background about what the book entails. Now, when you look at summary, which is very important. Summary, you give us a brief detailed information about the book. In other words, summary, we look at the plot, how the plot, events in the book unfolded. What is very important about summary is you need to do it using your own words. Remember that now it's you who is now writing the book review, not the author. So when you write, I don't want to read the author's writing. I want to read your own writing. It's a summary. And you give that briefly, but in details, without missing out important points. When we do summary, we do not rewrite the book. What do I mean by saying we do not rewrite the book? I mean you are going to put points from your own perspective, from your own understanding, using your own language. Not copying parts of the book into your book review. You need to say whatever you are saying in your own words. That is also very important. Present events in the order in which they happened in the book without leaving important information. So when you do summary, we need all those important details about the book. But very important, like I indicated earlier, you do not rewrite the book. You present the plot as it unfolded. The last bullet on this one is evaluation of content. Now the question I may ask in this instance is, who is going to evaluate the content? The writer of the book review, who is a learner, is the one who is going to evaluate content. When you evaluate content, you give your own opinion about the book. And you give opinion in a fair and just manner. You need to be very fair when you give your opinion about the book. Remember that now every book has got some parts that may interest you, and some parts that might not interest you at all. Now you have to go through that in a fair and just manner. When you evaluate a book, or let me put it this way, in many times than not, the book that we write a book review about, it's a book that we enjoyed. It's a book that it's interesting to us. So as you evaluate the content, then you'll be able to be objective, quite objective, because you'll have read the book that you like. No one will give a book review about a book that he did not enjoy, because you choose which book you are going to read and which one you are not going to read. Now let me present to you a frame for a book review. A frame for a book review. And before I present to you a frame, colleagues, I just want to emphasize this one, where we say the book review is not a content that we need to deal with only when we have our language competitions. No, but that is not the case. The book review is a prescribed content in our ATP, and we need to deal with it accordingly. The same applies with spelling. We do not only bring learners' attention to spelling only during our competitions. Spelling is an activity that learners engage in throughout their learning and teaching, in whatever activity that they do in language and in other subjects. Spelling is very important. So those are the things that we need to take into account and ensure that we engage learners in those throughout. Now let me show you a frame for a book review. This is a frame for a book review, and it's a frame that we are familiar with because we normally use it, not normally, we always use it when we do our reading competitions. So this is just to emphasize that now, as we are doing the classroom teaching now we are going to take learners through this. A book review by, that will be the lane of a learner, and a grade. Date started, date finished. What is the title of the book? Now, learners will have read, different learners will have read different books. Each learner will write the title of the book that he or she has read. And the author of the book, remember that now we said it's important for us to give the background of the author. Now the author of the book, you write the name of the author there and the setting. When was the book written? And where was the book written? In other words, it might be, the book might be referring to rural life. You say it's written in the rural areas because it's about rural life, or it's a city life, and it was written in 1989, in 2020, whatever, is very important. Now, as we have spoken about the characters, who are the characters? You need to list all the characters. Once it says who are the characters, you need to list all the characters in the book. Not the characters of your choice, but the characters as they appear in the book that you have read. Did you like them? It's a question, and it can take both folds. It can be yours, yes. It can be no. And motivation has to be given for that. You don't just say yes and then without motivating. Yes, I liked the characters because then you have to give the reason why. How did they make you feel? And normally we love the characters that make us feel good, that make us laugh, you know, the characters that we want to associate with. Those are the characters that we feel good about. But if it's a scary character, or the main character, it's a ruthless person, then we normally do not associate with that. But we still have to say who the main characters are. Now, in this instance, we give the names of the main characters. Plot. Plot is about the events as they happen in a story. There is an order in which the events happen, chronology, a chronological order, or a sequential order. They happen in a particular, in other words, the events start somewhere and they end somewhere. And in the middle, in many instances, in the middle we come across what we call a friction, which is meant to make the story or the book quite interesting. We need to go through that. Don't give away the ending, which is very important. Because once you give away the ending, no one will want to listen to you any further because you have already given the ending. So when you do a book review, you need to keep your readers in suspense. They need to ask themselves big questions. How did this end? What happened to a particular character? Those are the type of questions that you need to leave your readers with. Do not give away the ending of the book review. And now, as we talk about what happens, is it fun to read or is it not fun to read? You see, that is actually the plot, and which you are going to present it from your own angle or from how you understood the book, and someone else will also present it differently. This is quite an individualistic response, and we may say the response to this one is a bit relative because we might come up with different responses as different readers. And then your own opinion. Did you like this book? Remember I said the answer to this one is not yes or no. I mean, it's not yes that ends there. It's yes that ends with motivation. It's no that is followed by motivation. What was your favorite part and why? Because when you read a book, we all have something that we end up loving or liking about the book. That's my favorite part. What is my favorite part about the book? Why is it so favorite to me? Why do I like this part? You might like the part because there is something that you will have learned about the book, or it taught you something new, or it gave you a different version of attending issues. If there is a conflict, then this person resolved a conflict in an amicable manner. That is the skill that you'll have learned in as far as friction is concerned. That now you'll also be able to apply to your own life. That when there is a difference between you and the other learner, then you are able to solve your issues amicably without making one another feel belittled or demeaning to one another. Were there any funny or scary parts? You know, this is the part that makes the book quite interesting. Scary parts or the funny part, in your own opinion. This is actually what makes the book quite interesting. Did you learn anything from the story? Remember that now from every reading that we engage ourselves in, at the end of it all, we need to come out of that activity being better people in terms of what we will have learned. We need to learn from that. The last part, and remember, as you do this, because you have to demonstrate to learners in terms of how to write a book review, as you do this, teachers, you model to learners how you go about. In other words, what you are going to do, you are going to complete a book review frame yourself as a teacher, modeling to learners about how to do it, because you will have also read a book. The events, very important, we said they should be in the chronological order. There has to be there has to be a sequence in terms of how this take place. A recommendation. Would you recommend this book to a friend? Would you really say to your friend, hey, I have read this book. It's quite interesting. And after reading the book, I became a different person in terms of understanding of some elements of the book. And I would like you also to read this book and share it with your other friends also. Because if something is good, it needs to be shared. If it happened that now the book put you somehow in an awkward position where you did not feel quite comfortable, share with your friends. That now, but beware, the book is scary, because it got to a point where I felt that now, I was a bit scared about what was happening. I even felt very sorry for a particular character because of how another character was treating that character. It was such a scary part. Now that's a book review. And then at the end of it all, we say your star rating of the book. If this is an excellent book, you rate from 1 to 5, 1 being poor and then 5 being excellent. You rate your book in that fashion. Now I just want to give you another frame of the book, because there is a slight difference in terms of the frames, but you see, this frame it's the same as the yellow one that I have shown you, but let's look at what is interesting about this one. It's a book review. It has the title the same way that one has the title. The author, it's very important for us to say the author of this book is this. Okay, a review by the learner. Your name must also be there in terms of who wrote the review, and then the title, and then you say the author. Setting, the story takes place in, it might be in a rural area, it might be in your classroom, it might be in the classroom, because the setting, each and every book has got a setting. The events do not happen in the air, but they happen somewhere. Remember that now, in many times than not, the books reveal the actual events that happened to someone else. It might be someone very close to us or some of our relatives or friends. So it happens somewhere. It doesn't happen in vacuum. Hence now it's very important to state the setting, where you'll say it happened in the bush, for an example, or in the jungle, in a long time ago. That is the setting. Now the characters, people in the book are, the characters, because this one you have used the characters. We normally do not talk about, yes, the characters are the people in the book, but we have to use the correct genre. We say the characters in the book are, we know that now, we're not to define the characters, but the characters in the book are. That's what we have to do. The main character are interesting, not interesting because. Now we have the main character. Remember, in the book we might have one main character or more than one main characters. It depends on the type of the book that that you read. Now the main character is interesting because he treats others with respect. And one will say, hey, the main character is so interesting because he doesn't care about what anybody else but himself. Then if we find that to be interesting in the main character, we'll state it. My favorite part of the book was when. You see, I'm trying to project this so that now you see that now, okay, although the frames might be slightly different, but when you look at the contents of the frame, they talk about the same thing. What I'm trying to emphasize here, even us, if we write about the same book, the two of us, we need to be relevant in terms of the facts as they are contained in the book. My favorite part of the book was when. Okay, we spoke about that one, and then we'll say about it because it's also here in this book. I enjoyed the story. Did not enjoy the story because, you see, slight difference in terms of how the frames are structured, but they are talking about the same thing. That is what is important. I do not want to tell my friends to read this book because, you know, after because it means the resins have to come up. The resins have to come up. Because immediately I say because, now I have a list of reasons why I did a particular thing. Which is what is good about book review. It teaches us to support or to provide reasons for our own actions. But in this instance, we talk about the story or the book review. Did you enjoy? Now I do not want to tell my friends to read this book because, my dear learners and teachers, I want to believe that now you are quite familiar with the phrase, one man's meat is another man's poison. You might have not enjoyed the book, but I might find the book interesting. But because here you give your own point of view, when you tell your friends about the book that you have read, you are going to influence their response to the book because you don't want them to read it. If your stance is, I don't want to tell my friends to read the book, you are going to influence their reaction, their responses to the book. To an extent that now if you are good enough, they might not end up reading the book because you presented it to them in the manner that they would not even want to waste their time reading that book. The same way as when you want to recommend the book to them, as you want to tell them about the book. You tell them how good the book is. And then you also influence their response, their reaction in as far as the book is concerned. You want to put it in a manner that they will want to read the book, that they can't wait to read the book because the book is so interesting. Now they will say, I also want to read the book for myself because what you are telling me about the book looks so interesting and I really want that. Now further points, in my opinion, this book was interesting, boring. It's quite a bit of a similar points with the one that now I have raised at just at the point above. I don't want to tell my friends about this book. Now, in my opinion, this book was interesting. Now, if the book was not interesting, would you still want to tell your friends about that? Because the manner in which you react to what you have read is going to influence you to take it to your friends or not to take it to your friends. Now, further points is say, in my opinion, this book was interesting or this book was boring because You know, there are books that when you read, before you even reach the middle of the book, you put it aside to say, this is not for me. It's not going with me. I'm not learning from this book. I'm not getting fun reading this book. So why should I continue reading the book that I'm not even getting fun to read? You see, that. Now, these are the two frames. Now, as you complete the frame, or as you do your own book review, let me not talk about completing, but I'm saying as you do your own book review. Now you need to think, because good writers think about what they write. You need to think in terms of, how am I going to project myself? Remember, this is about yourself now. What did I say earlier? I said, after you have done a book review, I wouldn't be reading the book written by someone else. But here, you'll have projected events in the manner in which you understand, using your own language. As before you come to writing as a skill, you'll have dealt with other skills like listening and speaking, reading and viewing, language structure and conventions. By the time you come to writing, which means in as far as the language, sentence construction, the spelling, the language concepts are concerned, you have gathered enough vocabulary and enough competence in presenting your book review in a manner that will be interesting. And the other important part after this one will be the person who is going to mark your book, who is your teacher. Remember that now. Your teacher will come and mark your book, and the marking has to be consistent. What do I mean by saying the marking has to be consistent? And I'm saying this, colleagues, with regard to different genres that we engage in accordance with our ATP text types. When I talk about marking being consistent, I mean you mark the book. If there is a second person who is going to moderate what you'll have, how you'll have marked, that person should come up more or less with the similar outcomes. If the book review, for instance, is out of 15 or out of 20, let's say out of 20, now after you have gone through, your score is this learner got 6 out of 20, and then the second person comes moderate the very same book review, and then that person comes up with a score of 14 or 15 out of 20, then it means there is a problem. The marking is not consistent. Now we need to familiarize ourselves with the tools that we are going to use when we adjudicate the learner's work. And where we do not understand, we engage friends, we engage colleagues. You make sure that now you understand the tool well. At times the tool is developed by you. Now as for the learners, before they present their work to you for marking, you'll have provided them with a checklist that is going to guide them in terms of the quality of the work that they will have presented, so that a lot of errors are eradicated before the final product gets into your hands. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to wish you good luck in your teaching and learning, and do your best to teach those learners, because those are our future leaders. And learners, always take part in whatever transpires in the classroom. Always be the one to say, I can do it. And if you do not understand, ask your teachers. I want to thank you all, and it's the end.